Hello everybody, so my name is Fernanda and I am with, I recently joined Students United for a Free CUNY, and because of that, because of the momentum that has formed, we at John Jay have formed our own organization, and we are moving as John Jay Rising. And I want to make clear why it is that CUNY students are doing this. And it's because we understand that in 1975, the fact that they started charging tuition was not a coincidence. And the fact that we have compromised, we understand that this entire generation has compromised, and we don't want to do that anymore. We understand that there's also a racial component to the problems that we face in CUNY. We understand that in order to attack this, we need to raise the level of consciousness among CUNY students to tackle the systematic oppression that we have bought into. So we understand that we need to mobilize students, but through education, we understand that we need to raise this conscience about how this system has been reinforced by the idea of race. By that construction, we understand that the economic system that we are in could only be possible because of the racial construction that we have accepted. And the only way to understand that and grasp that and tackle that is through education. So we understand that education has to be fought for. And that's why we're here today, because we need to fight for that education. We need to fight for that consciousness. Okay? So that's my little intro. And this is Reyes Rivera from the 1969 takeover.
Thank you. My comments will be just a little longer than hers. One of the things that I almost insist upon, just like breathing, is the need for an historical context. And I want to give you that, right, very quickly. The City University dates back to 1847. It was called the Free Academy of the City of New York. It began as a prep school and a college all wrapped up in one, and it was based, quote unquote, on academic merit only to provide the male children of both the immigrant communities and the poor free access to higher education. Quote, and this comes back 100 and some odd years later, for those who otherwise could not gain normal access to higher education. Translation, those who couldn't pay the bill, right? And that's important. And they use the phrase, drawing people from the common schools, not the private ones. Common school, translation, public schools, right? The poor. It was named the City College in 1866, followed by Hunter College, which was established in 1870 as a women's institution. The City College was a male institution. Check that out. And both of which together, right, provided access to higher learning for the white underclass, the Irish, Eastern Europeans, Italians, and Jews back then at that time, right? They opened the doors to all, they said. Let the children of the rich and the poor take their seats together and know of no distinction save that of industry, good conduct, and intellect. Okay. In 1926, the state legislature created the Board of Higher Education to integrate, coordinate, and expand upon the colleges that were then existing, right, throughout the state. And the legislature would assert control over the city's free colleges. By 1925, John Jay College was established. In 1930, Brooklyn College, and in 1937, Queens College was added, along with several two-year community colleges. By the there was a little piece I missed. Throughout this period, you have to understand that the folks who were admitted into what became the free colleges or later the city universities were, for the most part, 99.9% not people of color. Even though New York City has always had a force to reckon with vis-a-vis since 1827, clearly a black community that was very active and adamant. Benjamin Franklin, during the American Revolution, had visited Brooklyn, and he said that the Negroes in Brooklyn are an insolent lot given to conspiracies and should not be trusted. Right? So that's during the American Revolution. So, you know, you have, there's a long trail. And of course, you know, by 1833, clearly there was an abolitionist movement in the United States, centered in places like New York and Boston, Philadelphia, etc., and that there was always a large, consistent black element to that abolitionist movement. It wasn't just white abolitionists, right? And it wasn't just Frederick Douglass. Okay. In either case, by the 1940s, the demographics in this city had changed so drastically, with more people of color, particularly United States African descendants, relocating after World War II and immigrating from the South. A lot of the soldiers who fought in World War II didn't get paid until the very end when they got mustered out. My father was among them in terms of Puerto Ricans who were inducted, even though they were never really citizens. And it happens that you would get paid this big lump sum. And that allowed a whole lot of black folk to get the hell out the South, right? Move their families north. And thus, quote unquote, the great migration of the 1940s, all right? But it wasn't just the United States African descendants migrating from the South. There were also a whole lot of black folk from the Caribbean, particularly from Puerto Rico and the British Caribbean, right? That's from the 1940s. In 1961, CUNY was established as a university system under the Board of Higher Education. That's what they called it back then. But in the 1960s, barely 5% of the students were, quote unquote, of color, right? 1963 to 1965, the City University issued its first master plan. And the master plan clearly indicated, mind you, check out the word master plan, right? You know, what are we going to do in the future? Well, let's study what's going on right now, and we can pick up on the trends. By the way, that's sociology, right? In either case, they projected that by 1975, there'd be more colored people in New York City than whites, right? And therefore, that the city university system would have to change its own system of demographics in order to be run parallel to what they were projecting. In other words, some form of admitting people of color into the city university structure was something that they had already predicted and projected as early as near the end of 63, the beginning of 64. I read that plan, all right? In either case, while that was going on, this is 63 to 65, the other things were happening. One, because the city university, city college, the free academy, was established in order to permit those who, quote, otherwise would not have access to institutions of higher learning, then what would have to happen, then what happens is, Harlem activists said, right, that the city university has violated its charter, Consequently, Harlem organizations, including Aspida and HARU Act, two of the main ones, joined together in a lawsuit to sue to revoke the charter of the entire city university. That, of course, was a serious piece. Meanwhile, because of the master plan, the Dormitory Authority, which was a state agency back then, they changed their name, I forget what it's called now, but they're the ones who asked the legislature for money in order to maintain, build, and expand. And so they were already lobbying the legislature for money to be designated for rebuilding and expanding the city university as it was. It happens that the unions at the time, the construction unions, were completely lily white. And you need to take up the game of poker and go visit the casinos and see all these old folks coming into the casinos to play poker every day behind their retirement to understand why the construction unions were closed to people of color. Not because of capacity and not because of lack of skills, because you got training programs to accommodate that, but because of the kind of pension that awaits them after they do their 30 years, all right? And I play poker, and I played poker with a whole bunch of construction workers who are no longer working but have plenty of time to let me get some of their money on that poker table. In either case, so the Dormitory Authority wanted to get the legislation passed, and the Black and Puerto Rican Legislative Caucus, which was already functioning at the time, refused to support the bills to allow for the passage of appropriations for construction, primarily because those unions were closed to people of color. Consequently, you have the Harlem lawsuit, you have the Dormitory Authority looking for money, and you got Black and Puerto Rican legislators arguing against funding the Dormitory Authority to pay unions that remain racist. Meanwhile, one other little thing was taking place. At City College, there were educators who were laying the groundwork for what they call an experimental program. See, we're not intellectual enough for them, all right? So they have to create programs in order to phase us in so we could hang out with them, right? That's the assumption. And of course, because we never once consider how to evaluate our own intelligentsia and know our history well enough to be able to argue about our own intelligentsia, all right? You check out just two people, just check them out, right? And go Google them and then read some of their works. W.E.B. Du Bois, all right, whose library alone, the books that he's written, and the articles that he's written. There's a book I have at home, 11 by 8, and it's this thick, serious. And all it is a bibliography of the work that he did. You with me? And then, if you check out W.E.B. Du Bois, right, and you just check out a few of the books that he wrote, and go to a library or a bookstore and check out how thick them damn books are, right? You know. Then go and check out the work of Jose Marti. Before this man died at 46, he left no less than 72 volumes of work behind him. And he wasn't just a poet. You with me? Anyway, so, no, wait a minute, now, I'm a poet, all right? Nobody introduced me. That's what I am, but that when I said that, I didn't mean to denounce poets, all right? I hope to do what Neruda did. I hope to leave 2,000 pages of poetry behind me before I die.
This. Every single stroke of the pen is a stroke of genius. Other than my CD, you ain't heard a flow as deep as this. Every verse should be treated like the Mona Lisa is, and yeah, you